The story kicks off with Jen, a 25-year-old woman, nervously entering a job interview. As she sits across from a staff member, it quickly becomes clear this is no ordinary interview. The staff member possesses a unique power, one that forces anyone to speak nothing but the truth. As the questions roll in, Jen feels the pressure. She confesses that she's selfish, struggling with low self-esteem, and lacking the ambition that others seem to have.
Crippling insecurity, selfish and lazy. I am worried I'm a little bit racist.
Her revelation stings even more when she admits that she doesn't have any superpowers herself. Unlike the others who are born with extraordinary abilities, Jen feels completely ordinary. Her motivation wanting the job was not passion or purpose, it's just the need for a paycheck. The interview ends on a sour note and Jen leaves, disheartened with her hopes dashed. On her way home, Jen's thoughts drift back to a world where every adult receives their superpower at the age of 18. Yet here she is at 25, still waiting for hers to show up. Later, Jen meets up with her close friend Luke. Over a casual conversation, she mentions her younger sister Andy's upcoming 18th birthday and invites Luke to the party. But Luke, ever the loner, isn't interested. With a flick of his wrist, he takes off, soaring into the sky using his flying powers, leaving Jen alone with her thoughts. The next day, Jen's friend Carrie is at work. Though her job as a clerk at a law office is far from ordinary, Carrie has a rare superpower, the ability to summon spirits and allow them to temporarily possess her body. It's a skill her boss takes full advantage of, using Carrie's power to help manage the inheritance distribution for deceased clients. Back at Jen's apartment, she returns home to an unexpected sight. Cash, Carrie's boyfriend, standing in front of her wearing a ridiculous superhero costume. Cash, who lives in the same building as Jen and Carrie, looks utterly out of place in the embarrassing outfit. At that moment, Jen can't help but make sarcastic comments, which push Cash to his breaking point. With a snap of his fingers, Cash uses his power to manipulate time, erasing the awkward moment before it even happens. Later, Cash and Carrie go for a peaceful walk together. Their romantic stroll is interrupted when a thief, invisible to the eye, attempts to mug them. But Cash, unshaken, uses his abilities to catch the thief off guard. In a flash, the thief is subdued and the pair quickly make their escape, leaving the chaos behind them. On the other hand, Jen finds herself on a blind date with a man named Gordon, though things quickly take an awkward turn. As they introduce themselves, Jen openly admits she doesn't have any superpowers, while Gordon hesitates before revealing his ability that he finds deeply embarrassing. Apparently, Gordon can make others experience the peak of sexual pleasure with just a touch. To avoid any unfortunate incidents, he wears gloves at all times, keeping his distance. Despite the tension, Jen decides to stick it out, trying to salvage the date. Gordon, clearly uncomfortable with his power, does his best not to touch her, but it's painfully clear that the situation isn't going well. After a strained dinner, Gordon calls it quits, convinced that their relationship could never work because of his bizarre ability. Later, Jen meets up with Carrie and Cash, who, in typical fashion, lighten the mood by jokingly naming the stray cat Jen took in Jizzlord. The moment provides some much-needed humor, but Jen can't shake the feeling of embarrassment and inadequacy. Several days later, at her younger sister Andy's 18th birthday party, Jen faces a much more personal struggle. The competition between the two sisters is evident, and the tension only grows when Andy suddenly receives her superpower, extraordinary physical strength. Watching Andy's transformation makes Jen feel even more ordinary, more insignificant in a world full of extraordinary abilities. But just when Jen thinks she can't take it anymore, Luke swoops in with an invitation to fly. For the first time in a while, Jen smiles, the promise of something greater lifting her spirits. Luke, ever the supportive friend, tells Jen she needs to start loving herself. He believes that embracing who she is would bring a more positive outlook to her life, especially as someone without superpowers. But Jen can't seem to take his advice to heart. Confused and frustrated, she reaches out to her father, Martin, the one person who's always been able to calm her during stressful times. To her shock, she learns that Martin has passed away. All this time, he's been communicating with Jen through Carrie by possessing her body. Stunned by the revelation, Jen's world is turned upside down. Carrie and Cash, determined to help her, start a mission to unlock Jen's own superpower. They find a suggestion online that claims eating the spiciest dish at a local restaurant can trigger hidden abilities. Jen, desperate and willing to try anything, digs in. But no matter how much fire she endures, her powers remain dormant. In an effort to soothe the intense burning, Jen rushes to the supermarket and drinks as much milk as she can. Luke happens to spot her, and Jen, mortified by the entire scene, can't escape the embarrassment.
All right, I'll see you around then.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe not.
Undeterred, Carrie and Cash plan their next big move. This time they believe fear might do the trick. Soon, Carrie takes Jen to the dentist, her worst nightmare, knowing that dental procedures send Jen into a panic. Once there, the dentist discovers several cavities that need filling. In an attempt to ease her nerves, the dentist gives Jen a sedative. But despite enduring the terrifying treatment, Jen still doesn't unlock her power. Despite this, Cash and Carrie weren't giving up. They hatched a new plan. This time, Cash would pretend to be a terrorist, kidnapping Jen and locking her in the trunk of a car. It sounded extreme, but they were running out of options. Unfortunately for them, Jen, still groggy from the sedative, barely reacted when she found herself in the trunk. Her calmness only made things weirder. While they took a break to grab some food, they didn't realize that a parking officer had moved the car. When Carrie found out, panic set in. She quickly called Jen, urging her to enable location sharing. After some back and forth, they managed to track down the car. But of course, just as they thought they had it all figured out, Cash realized he had lost the key to the trunk. Jen was still locked inside, and their latest plan had crashed and burned. Shortly after, Jen's grogginess finally wore off, and panic set in as she realized she was trapped in the trunk. Her heart raced as she pounded on the walls, but the darkness and the tight space only made it worse. Meanwhile, Cash scrambled, desperately trying to force the trunk open, but nothing worked. Seeing the deadlock, Carrie had no choice but to call Andy. She knew that her superhuman strength was the only chance they had. When Andy arrived, she wasn't exactly eager to help. She laid down an ultimatum. Jen would have to make a humiliating statement, something Andy wanted in exchange for opening the trunk. Jen, frustrated but with no other option, reluctantly agreed. Her pride was bruised, but escaping the trunk was more important. Finally, with a powerful yank, Andy tore the trunk open, and Jen was free. But that didn't solve everything. Jen, still without superpowers, found herself less and less bothered by it. At least not until something strange happened back at her apartment. Jen discovered that her pet cat, Jizzlord, wasn't just a cat, he was a man. Confused, she asked him about his true identity and how he ended up as a feline. But Jizzlord couldn't remember his past or even his real name. All he knew was that his memories before becoming a cat were hazy, as if his human life had been wiped away completely. The next day, Jen's investigation into Jizzlord's bizarre transformation uncovered a shocking truth. He had been turned into a cat 3 years ago. With Carrie and Cash on board, Jen agreed to let Jizzlord stay in their apartment while he tried to regain his true identity. Life moved on, and Jen found herself back at her old job in the costume shop. But things weren't going smoothly. Her inability to deal with customer complaints led to yet another reprimand from her boss, Ange. It didn't take long for Jen to realize that Ange wasn't your average boss. Though she appeared to be in her late teens, Ange was actually 50 years old, her youthful appearance the result of a superpower. Despite her quirks, Ange saw something in Jen. She offered advice and, to Jen's surprise, expressed a desire for her to eventually take over the store when she was no longer able to manage it. Meanwhile, Carrie's day took an unexpected turn. She met with a client named Travis, a slick music industry professional with a plan. He wanted to summon the spirit of Colt, a country singer from the 70s who had died before finishing his final album. Colt's fans were still clamoring for the release, and Travis saw an opportunity to capitalize on that demand. His plan was to have Colt's spirit possess Carrie so she could finish the album. It was a bold, unconventional idea, but one that promised big rewards. In short, Carrie, with Jen's encouragement, agreed to help Travis with his bold plan. Pretending to be a talent management agent, Carrie and Jen sat down with Travis to negotiate their payment. After some back and forth bargaining, they landed a deal: £300,000 for Carrie if she successfully helped Travis's client, the late Colt. The sum was more than enough to split between them, and they both agreed it was too good to pass up. As the album recording approached, Carrie began going through the lyrics Colt had written. She quickly discovered something unsettling. Many of the lyrics were degrading toward women. With Jen's support, Carrie made a brave decision. She would rewrite Colt's lyrics to avoid any controversy. Then, the time came for Colt's spirit to possess Carrie and begin recording his final album. As Carrie stepped into the studio, she felt Colt take over, and the music began. But something unexpected happened. While singing, Colt recognized the changes in the lyrics. Despite being dead for decades, he remembered every word of the original version. Furious at the revisions, Colt refused to continue recording the album. In a final act of defiance, Travis canceled the payment to Carrie, leaving the entire project in ruins. On the other hand, Cash wasn't giving up on his superhero dreams. With Jizzlord by his side, he set out to form a team, Vigilante.
I'm basically a magnet.
Holding auditions, Cash handpicked 4 individuals with unique powers to join his group. Their abilities were a mixed bag: super speed, summoning sea creatures, phasing through walls, and the most bizarre of all, creating 3D objects from their backside. Despite the oddity of some powers, Cash was determined to make Vigilante a force for good. Their mission was to protect women from crime in their city. A few days later, Vigilante launched their first operation. They were on patrol when they spotted a woman walking alone in a secluded area. True to their mission, the team sprang into action, ready to protect her. But things didn't go as planned. The woman, startled by their sudden appearance, panicked and ended up having an accident that ruined her clothes. It was an awkward start, but Cash wasn't ready to give up just yet. Next, the team raided a suspected hideout of criminals. Following Cash's lead, one member used his power to phase through the wall and open the door from the inside. But things went sideways fast. His backside got stuck in the wall. Turns out the wall was thicker than he had anticipated. The operation came to a halt as the team scrambled to free their teammate, their first mission turning into an unexpected mess. Things went from bad to worse when their teammate, still stuck in the wall, couldn't free himself. He'd exhausted his energy using his powers, leaving no way out. With the mission still underway, Cash made the tough call to leave him behind and push forward with the rest of the team. But just as things seemed to calm down, Cash's phone buzzed. It was a call from one of his teammates urgently telling him that another member had caused a scene in a public area. Knowing the situation could spiral out of control fast, Cash made a snap decision to abandon the stuck teammate and rush to the scene. When he arrived, Cash didn't hesitate. Using his time-rewinding power, he tried to reverse time and stop the disturbance before it got worse. But his powers only allowed him to rewind a few minutes, back to when the scene first began. No matter how many times he tried to rewind further, he couldn't change the outcome. Realizing things were spiraling out of his control, Cash had no choice but to retreat, feeling the pressure mounting as he realized he was about to be attacked, thanks to his teammates' reckless actions. Meanwhile, Jen, determined to uncover more about Jizzlord's mysterious past, took him to a vet named Wender, who had a unique gift, the ability to hear the thoughts of every animal in his clinic. However, the constant barrage of negative thoughts from the animals often overwhelmed him.
Please don't take my testicles.
Why have my owners abandoned me?
Kill me.
So Wender frequently wore headphones and blasted music to keep his sanity intact. After running some tests, Wender discovered a microchip implanted in Jizzlord's body. Tracing the microchip's data, Wender found an address tied to a man named David, who was believed to be Jizzlord's original owner before his transformation into a cat. As the examination concluded, Wender explained that Jizzlord was suffering from long-term memory loss due to the transformation. To help him recover his true identity, Jen knew she had to track down David. So she headed to David's house, hoping for answers. But when she arrived, she was greeted with heartbreaking news. David had recently passed away. While at David's house, Jizzlord wandered off and stumbled upon a dog named Tito, who immediately recognized him. It didn't take long for Jen to realize that Tito and Jizzlord had a history, a rivalry that went way back when Jizzlord was still a stray. Determined to dig deeper into Jizzlord's past, Jen decided to take a different route, bringing Tito, the dog with a history with Jizzlord, to Dr. Winder. After hearing Tito's thoughts, Winder revealed that Tito would only help uncover Jizzlord's past if he was taken to a party. At first, Jen hesitated, but after some convincing, she agreed. So Jen, along with Jizzlord and Winder, took Tito to a nightclub, hoping the party would get him to open up. After the night was over, Tito finally shared what he knew. It wasn't much. Tito had encountered Jizzlord when he was a stray cat, living in an alley. Unfortunately, that was all the information Tito had on Jizzlord's past. With a sigh, Winder let Tito go, knowing the dog was meant to live freely.
I'll take him back to the surgery.
Undeterred, Jen and Jizzlord followed the lead Tito had given them to a spot in the city. But when they arrived, there was nothing more to uncover. No new clues, no breakthrough on Jizzlord's real name, genre, life before the transformation. As Jen and Jizzlord sat, reflecting on their fruitless search, something shifted. Jizzlord, staring off into the distance, began to suspect that his true identity might not be as perfect or ideal as he had imagined. He thought about it for a moment before making a decision. It was time to accept who he was now, Jen's companion, in this new life. A few weeks later, Jen and her family found themselves back at her former high school, visiting her sister, Andy, who was now a student there. Coincidentally, the school was about to hold an awards ceremony, and Andy was set to receive a prestigious award for being accepted into a renowned music university. As they mingled with the crowd, Jen's mother, Mary, made an offhand comment that caught Jen off guard. She claimed that Behind had the ability to read minds. Mary, though well-meaning, made up the lie to protect Jen. In their world, adults without superpowers were often discriminated against, and Mary didn't want her daughter to be judged. Soon, Jen bumped into Carrie, who had come to give a speech for her graduating class. As they caught up, they were approached by Rebecca, a teacher from Jen's school days. The tension in the air was immediate. Rebecca had been a bully to Carrie back in the day, and the discomfort between them was palpable. Jen, eager to protect her secret and avoid any awkward questions about being powerless, tried to deflect the conversation. Meanwhile, Rebecca, with her usual air of superiority, admitted that her power was to revive memories. Later, Jen found herself in the bathroom, unintentionally eavesdropping on a conversation between her sister, Andy, and her close friend, Susan. What she overheard made her stomach churn. Andy had some dark secrets that could unravel everything. The first secret was a mistake Andy had made using her super strength. She'd accidentally cracked Susan's bone during a casual moment between them. But it was the second secret that hit Jen hard. Andy had been rejected by the music university, not because of her talent, but because her powers had made it impossible for her to play the violin properly anymore. That was a devastating blow to Andy's dream. Once Susan left, Jen couldn't hold back. She confronted Andy, forcing her to admit the truth. But Jen wasn't about to expose her sister's secrets. In exchange for her silence, Andy promised to obey whatever Jen asked. Her powerlessness now felt like the only leverage she had. Meanwhile, Carrie was having a tense conversation with Rebecca, who was trying to justify her past actions. Rebecca insisted she'd changed since regaining her ability to revive memories. She claimed she now regretted the bullying and hurtful things she had done in high school, but there was one thing she couldn't let go: her disapproval of Carrie's friendship with Jen. Rebecca didn't hold back, calling Jen selfish and implying that she wasn't worth Carrie's time. The tension between them was palpable, and Carrie couldn't shake the feeling that Rebecca's change might not be as genuine as she claimed. Rebecca wasn't done. To make her point crystal clear, she used her power to trigger memories in Carrie, memories from their high school days. As the past unfolded, Carrie saw the truth. Jen had always been trouble. Despite Carrie's constant efforts to help, Jen's bad habits had kept her from achieving the success she deserved. The realization hit Carrie hard. Jen was, without a doubt, selfish. A little later, Andy took the stage to deliver her speech after receiving an award from the school. But in an effort to keep her secret safe, she reluctantly read the speech Jen had written for her. It was full of embarrassing moments, making Andy uncomfortable the entire time.
Is it a living hell to have a sister who is a genius? But she's also done so much for me. When I demanded Nelson Mandela be put back in prison, but my moderate success is my sister.
In a subtle act of defiance, she ended her speech by criticizing Jen, claiming that her sister had no special talents or accomplishments to speak of. Jen, seething with frustration, wasn't going to let that slide. In front of everyone, she exposed Andy's two darkest secrets: the accidental injury to Susan and the rejection from the music university. The fallout was immediate. The school, furious at Andy's lies, revoked her award on the spot. The drama didn't stop there. Carrie, who had been waiting for her turn to speak, finally took the stage to deliver her own speech on behalf of her graduating class. But as she tried to focus, her concentration shattered. The sound of Jen's family arguing in the back, following the explosive revelation of Andy's secrets, drowned out her words. After the ceremony, Carrie confronted Jen, her anger boiling over. She was furious that Jen had ruined her moment, stealing the spotlight during her speech. Carrie emphasized how important that speech was for her. It was her chance to shine, and Jen had completely derailed it. Hurt by Carrie's harsh words, Jen's frustration exploded. Without thinking, she told Carrie to leave. And with that, their friendship fractured. From then on, Jen and Carrie ignored each other. Any communication that happened between them was through Jizzlord, the reluctant middleman. Jen, feeling the weight of her life as a powerless human, became increasingly fed up. She was tired of feeling ordinary, so she decided to take action. She made the decision to visit the Discovery Clinic, hoping to finally find some answers about her lack of powers. At the clinic, while preparing for her consultation, Jen met a woman named Hannah. Like Jen, Hannah was 25 and still hadn't discovered any superpowers. The two of them quickly bonded over their shared frustration. Later, Hannah invited Jen to sit somewhere more comfortably to fill out her forms, and as they chatted, they realized just how much they had in common. They both felt alienated in a world where everyone else seemed to have abilities, and this common ground turned them into fast friends. Later, Jen and Hannah couldn't help but notice a woman with the incredible ability to change the style and color of her hair at will. Feeling mischievous, they decided to have a little fun. They snuck up behind her and cut a small portion of her hair, thinking they'd caught her off guard. But to their shock, the woman instantly restored her hair to its original form, completely unfazed by their prank. That night, Jen and Hannah made their way back to the Discovery Clinic, waiting for the place to quiet down. Fueled by frustration with the world of superpowers, they decided to rebel. They vandalized the facility, letting their anger take hold. But in the midst of their defiance, something unexpected happened. Hannah suddenly discovered her own superpower: teleportation. She was thrilled, and in a moment of genuine friendship, promised Jen she would always stay by her side, no matter what power she gained. But their victory was short-lived. A clinic employee caught them in the act, and in a split second, Hannah broke her promise. She used her teleportation power to escape, leaving Jen behind to face the consequences. Back at the apartment, Jen sat watching a video of Hannah proudly showcasing her newfound power, her excitement clear. But Jen's stomach sank. She could feel the distance growing between them. Since that moment, she knew deep down that Hannah would no longer want to stay friends with her. On the other hand, after the disastrous failure of the last vigilante mission, Cash withdrew into Pierre's apartment, consumed by guilt. As the leader of the team, he felt he had failed them all. The weight of his failure was crushing, and he could barely bring himself to face anyone. It was during this dark time that Carrie suggested he apologize to the team. A simple step, but perhaps the first toward redemption. Taking her advice, Cash reached out to the first two members of Vigilante. To his relief, they accepted his apology. Their forgiveness lifted his spirits and reignited a glimmer of hope. Encouraged, Cash moved on to the last two members, Gregor and Randall. But when he tried to apologize to Gregor, the response was far from what he had hoped. Gregor refused to forgive him, calling him an incompetent leader. Randall, siding with Gregor, also turned his back on Cash. Gregor took it further, mocking Cash in front of his own new superhero team, making Cash feel utterly humiliated. Fury rose inside Cash. The sting of betrayal was too much to bear. He couldn't let Gregor walk away unchallenged. Without thinking, he called Gregor out to a fight. The battle was brutal. Gregor's super speed made him impossible to hit, dodging every punch and move Cash made. But Cash wasn't done yet. In a moment of desperation, he used his time-rewinding ability, catching Gregor off guard. With his single, well-timed move, Cash finally defeated him. After defeating Gregor, Cash finally saw a glimmer of hope. Randall, seeing the determination in Cash, agreed to follow his leadership and help rebuild Vigilante. It was a small but crucial victory. Cash, now filled with renewed confidence, rushed to share the good news with Carrie. Vigilante was back, stronger than ever, and ready to resume their mission. He thanked her, acknowledging that it was her advice that had set this comeback in motion. Not long after, Jen and Carrie realized they couldn't stay apart. Their differences had caused a rift, but deep down, they knew they still needed each other. They reconciled, and just like that, their friendship was restored. With Carrie by her side, Jen finally felt ready for her consultation at the clinic. As she filled out the forms, Carrie quietly admitted her own frustrations. She was torn. While she was glad to see Vigilante revived, it had caused Cash to distance himself from her. His newfound focus on the team had made him less communicative and more absorbed in his mission, leaving Carrie feeling sidelined. The next day, Cash called a meeting with the entire Vigilante team at his apartment. Determined to boost the group's influence and make a real impact, they decided to shift their focus to tackling serious crimes.
I'm just looking for my hairdryer.
Randall, ever the informant, provided the location of a major drug transaction. The plan was set. Vigilante would intervene and stop the deal, proving that they were more than just a superhero team, but a force for justice. Meanwhile, Jen was drowning in financial stress, struggling to scrape together enough money for the superpower revival therapy she desperately needed at the clinic. The problem was simple. Jen didn't have any special skills or abilities to help increase her income, leaving her stuck in a cycle of frustration. But one day, as she watched Jizzlord transform into a cat, an idea sparked in Jen's mind. Jizzlord's shape-shifting ability could be her ticket to the money she so badly needed. She learned of a cat talent contest offering a $10,000 prize, enough to cover her therapy. Unfortunately, Jizzlord wasn't exactly a dancing cat. Determined, Jen entered Jizzlord into the contest, boldly claiming that her cat could dance. She was confident that the prize was within reach, even though Jizzlord had no idea how to dance. But as she began training him, Jen quickly realized a harsh truth. When Jizzlord was in cat form, he had an entirely different personality and mindset. His focus was elsewhere. He simply couldn't understand the instructions she was giving him. No matter how hard she tried, it was clear that Jizzlord wasn't about to become a dancing sensation anytime soon. As Jen struggled to train Jizzlord, frustration mounted. She couldn't figure out how to get her cat to dance for the talent contest. Then, a memory from Jizzlord's last message before his transformation surfaced in her mind. In his final words, Jizzlord had expressed his desire to find his true identity, but he had also shared something even more important. He was happy living with Jen. Inspired by his words, Jen's mind raced. She suddenly came up with an idea. She didn't need Jizzlord to learn how to dance. Instead, she could use his unique abilities and work with what he already had to make it work on stage. She felt a new sense of determination. They could do this together, no matter what it took. Meanwhile, Carrie was dealing with a situation of her own. While helping a client, she encountered the spirit of King Charles I. The ghostly monarch, known for his historical flirtations, quickly struck up a deeper connection with Carrie. Their interactions grew more intimate, and Carrie found herself swept up in the kind of attention she'd never received from Cash. As she became more enchanted with the spirit of King Charles I, Carrie began to see Cash as dull. He was just her boyfriend, nothing more. And King Charles I felt like the breath of fresh air she had been craving. Back in the real world, Cash and Vigilante were on the scene of a drug transaction. They had set up a sting operation, waiting for the criminals to arrive. But their plans were interrupted when they crossed paths with a rival superhero group. Led by Gregor, the group had somehow gotten wind of the operation's location. It didn't take long for Cash to realize that Gregor knew about the sting because Randall had tipped him off. The air was tense as both Vigilante and Gregor's group lay hidden, waiting for the criminals to arrive. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours, and the silence was almost unbearable. In the midst of the stillness, Cash found himself locked in an argument with Gregor. Each side insisted their group was more deserving of stopping the transaction, their egos clashing as the stakes grew higher. But as the words were exchanged, Cash's thoughts began to shift. He realized that the success of Vigilante meant little if he lost Carrie's love. All the victories, the missions, the superhero life, it would be hollow if it came at the cost of his relationship. As he felt the weight of this realization, the time for his date with Carrie loomed closer. It became clear he couldn't keep chasing the mission if it meant losing what truly mattered. In that moment, Cash made a decision. He turned his back on the mission and left, determined to spend the evening with Carrie. Arriving at her apartment, he knew what he had to do. He had made the choice to quit being a superhero, to leave Vigilante behind. He wasn't willing to sacrifice his relationship with Carrie any longer. In doing so, he was embracing a new path, one that prioritized love over the life he had built as a vigilante. On the other hand, Jen and Jizzlord stood backstage waiting for their turn. When their act was called, Jen was determined to make it work. She instructed Jizzlord to transform into a human and dance with her. The performance itself went flawlessly. They moved in sync, a seamless blend of her human grace and Jizzlord's newly gained ability. But when the performance ended, the judges' reactions were a harsh contrast to the smoothness of their routine. Most of them gave them a 0. They had been expecting a cat talent show, not a dancing duo. After the show, Carrie used her power to summon the spirit of Martin, Jen's late father. As Martin's presence filled her body, Jen shared with her father the struggles she was facing, how she'd been forced to cancel her therapy due to lack of funds. But the weight on her shoulders wasn't just financial. She confided in Martin about Carrie's plans to break up with Cash. Their relationship had become strained, and Carrie was ready to walk away. Meanwhile, amidst the tension and uncertainty in her own life, Cash decided to surprise everyone. He planned a party at Jen's apartment, hoping to bring some lightness to the situation. As the evening approached, Jen braced herself. She knew her mother would be attending, and the last thing she wanted was complications. She asked Jizzlord to act like a regular friend, hoping for a smooth night free from the strain of their complicated relationships. Shortly after, Jen found herself talking to her mother, Mary, who had arrived at the party visibly upset. As they spoke, Jen learned that Mary's frustration was rooted in her issues with Andy. Recently, Andy had been complaining constantly, and Mary had finally reached her limit. Afterward, it was Jizzlord's turn to talk to Mary. In his quiet way, he shared some of the struggles Jen had been facing. He explained how Jen felt excluded from the world around her because, unlike everyone else, she didn't have any superpowers. He also revealed that Jen had tried to get superpower revival therapy, but had to cancel it due to financial issues. Hearing this, Mary's reaction was swift. Anger flared within her. She was upset that Jen had kept such an important part of her life hidden. Still, despite her anger, Mary tried to prove she still cared for her daughter, even if their relationship was strained and imperfect. Elsewhere, Carrie finally had the chance to speak with Cash. As the conversation unfolded, it became clear to Cash that Carrie was planning to end their relationship. In a desperate attempt to stop her, Cash used his power to manipulate time, rewinding it just enough to divert her attention whenever she seemed ready to walk away. Time passed, and Carrie soon became aware of something unsettling. Cash had been using his powers repeatedly to prevent her from ending their relationship. She quickly realized that Cash's ability to manipulate time had been fueled by a steady stream of energy drinks, allowing him to keep rewinding moments and redirecting her thoughts. Determined to put an end to his manipulation, Carrie took matters into her own hands. She emptied the fridge, discarding every last can of energy drink. With his power now depleted, Carrie confronted Cash, her resolve unshakable. She made it clear that their relationship had reached its end. Without his usual power to rewind time, Cash had no defense against Carrie's decision. He could feel the weight of her words, and despite his efforts, he had no choice but to accept the painful reality. Their relationship was over. Meanwhile, Jen found her close friend Luke at the party, catching up with him when, to her surprise, Jizzlord appeared and boldly declared in front of everyone that he was Jen's boyfriend. Taken aback, Jen quickly instructed Luke to grab a drink and pulled Jizzlord aside for a private conversation. She scolded him for his public announcement, her discomfort clear. She wasn't sure about her feelings for him yet and wasn't ready for their relationship to be so openly defined. A few minutes later, Luke, trying to lighten the mood, offered to take Jen flying. As they prepared, he couldn't resist poking fun at Jizzlord, calling him a strange man and suggesting that Jen could do better. Unexpectedly, Jen's eyes narrowed, clearly offended by Luke's words. She quickly defended Jizzlord, her voice firm as she explained that he was kind, funny, and someone she genuinely enjoyed being with. Luke's teasing didn't sit well with her, but after Jen left, he shrugged it off. Ready to fly away and clear his head, Luke tried to take off, but something was off. His feet stayed firmly planted on the ground. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't lift off. His powers had failed him for reasons he couldn't explain. Later, Jen found Jizzlord, and in a quiet moment, she confessed that she wanted to be his girlfriend. It was a simple admission, but it marked a new chapter for them. From that moment on, Jen and Jizzlord were officially a couple. Back at the apartment, Jen couldn't wait to share the news. She proudly told Mary, Carrie, and even Gordon about her new relationship. It was a fresh start for Jen, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like things were finally falling into place. In the midst of their newfound happiness, Mary surprised Jen with an offer of financial support to help with her therapy. However, when she learned just how much the therapy would cost, Mary hesitated. The price tag was much higher than she had anticipated, and she wasn't sure how she could help. But not long after, Gordon, who had a high-paying job thanks to his powers, stepped in with an unexpected offer. He promised to finance Jen's therapy, offering a solution when it seemed like there was no way forward. The next day, Jizzlord went shopping at the supermarket, picking up ingredients for Jen's latest baking project. As he wandered the aisles, he was stopped by a young child who looked up at him and recognized his face. Before Jizzlord could respond, the child's mother appeared, equally shocked. She revealed that they were family to Jizzlord, something he never expected to hear. And with that, the story came to a close.
Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.